Okay, I'll ask you number 5. So, Rylas, let's say there's a trust and the beneficiary is living in the house. What happens when the beneficiary is living in the house?
Yeah, common situation. And whenever there's real estate, I always ask that as well. What's the current status of the house? Is anyone living there?
Yeah.
So, and then the other question is what is the overall plan for the house? And what I mean by that is the house going to be sold? Um, maybe the beneficiary that's living there, there's a specific gift where they also get the house, so that wouldn't really matter in that situation. But let's say it's a situation where one beneficiary is living in the house. The house is a majority of the trust, right? That a lot of times that's the case, right? The major asset of the trust is the house.
Yeah.
In the cases where there's a lot of assets, and it might be that if the trust is large enough, let's say the house is $500,000 and it's $1 million trust and there's 2 beneficiaries.
Okay.
Right? If the one living there wants it as their share, that's pretty easy, right? Because they can take it as their half. The other beneficiary will choose other assets.
Okay.
And again, assuming they're all in agreement to that. Now, where it gets interesting is when multiple people want the house, or I had a situation recently where they lost their dad. It's 2 brothers. One was living in the house, and he wants to keep it as part of his share. So what they had to do is figure out a fair buyout price. So since he wanted to keep it, that's kind of the next challenge. Okay, so they are going to keep it. Then what's a fair way to do that? Now, this situation, they had an appraisal done. But what happened is it was kind of a high appraisal, and it was a lazy appraisal. So the appraisal, and what I explained to them, what I've learned, and maybe I'd like to get your opinion too. Usually appraisals are ordered by the bank, right? There's a specific reason for it. The bank says we're going to loan this person, $300,000. We need you to value this and tell you what it's worth. When they're not answering to the bank and something else, sometimes it's just kind of lazy. They didn't actually inspect the property, and this property actually needed some repairs, and it wasn't in great condition. So my client was saying that appraisal was too high. And then his brother was, of course, saying he was dead set. That's the value. We got to use it, blah, blah, blah. And the other thing that I like to do when one person wants to keep the house, I don't think it's fair that they should pay their siblings more than what the trust or estate would net if they sold it on the open market. Meaning if they sell it, they're going to pay commissions and title costs and all of those things. So usually what I recommend, if a beneficiary is going to save them all of that time and cost, we pass along that discount to them. And I usually just call it like a flat 10%. So try to figure out what the value is, get some idea of the value, which could be a challenge, and then take 10% off of that, and then have the beneficiary buy it for that.
Okay, interesting. Okay. I will tell you, I agree with you on the appraisals. I find oftentimes with trusts or probates, they're trying to get the highest dollar, and so they'll get one appraisal, and if they don't like it, then they'll get another appraisal and hope to get more money. So yeah, I do find that those appraisals are not the same ones as when you get a bank to go do it. Just my experience.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. And the challenge in those situations, if you're going to sell it to the open market, the market kind of determines the price, right?
Correct. Not the appraisal.
A willing and able buyer, and then usually appraisal only matters if they're trying to justify debt on it.
Exactly. And I find that the appraiser may give us, let's say, $700,000, but then when we put it on the market, it might sell for $600,000. That appraisal it's the market value is what matters, not the appraisal. So, but I do find that. So to follow up on that, so when the beneficiary is living in the house, they get to stay there for rent free, or do they have to pay rent to the trust then?
Yeah. Good question. So by living there, they're receiving value equivalent to rent, but they're also oftentimes securing the house. Sometimes it's more in air quotes, sometimes, I don't know how much value there is, but in certain situations, especially small towns, I have clients in like small towns in like Cottonwood and Prescott,
Yeah.
where there's squatters all over those places. And it even happens here too, where the word gets out, if there's a
Yes.
vacant property, people will post up in there.
I
So
There is value in having someone in the house in particular neighborhoods, or what I find is out in rural areas, just to stop vandalism. So yeah, there is value, Rylas.
yeah, so the question is, where does that fall,
Yeah,
right? Are they getting more value by living there rent free than they're providing by um, by securing the place?
probably.
Now, oftentimes it's the beneficiary living there um, maybe doesn't want to sell it, right? They have no motivation.
Yes.
So that can be the challenge. So in those situations, we'll make sure to assign some rent, to make it, because it's not fair to the other beneficiaries,
Mhm.
that this person gets to live there rent free and have it drag on. So
Yes.